That's the key. You did it with a small assignment, but even if indirectly you're doing something like a volunteering event, or oh, we're going to spare 15 minutes in every staff meeting to recognize, or we are doing a common donation and we're going to raise money. You're bringing the team together, because it's just work, and work, everybody's doing different things, and you're coming and talking about problems. Because otherwise, like you said, the morale, if it's bad, then it's going to be even more bad if you don't get the team together. And getting the team together doesn't necessarily mean that you're always executing on the next software upgrade or the next software. It's also about these things, because that creates that sense that yes, I do belong in the team, whether I agree with what I'm doing or not. I'm still part of the team. They're doing great things. I like the team. We are all in it together.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders in Tech, where we're shedding the light to great leaders in technology that are changing their organizations for a better place, thus changing this world for a better place. Today we have with us one of those great leaders, Praveen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Praveen, for the audience, can you tell me your full name, where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
Sure. My full name is Praveen Kesani. I work for Wells Fargo Bank. I manage a portfolio of technology platforms that cater to commercial and corporate investment banking within Wells Fargo. I live in the beautiful Bay Area, go to work in San Francisco, and we're looking forward to the great summer weather that's coming up.
I know summer is coming, and you don't get bad weather there though, but it still changes, right?
Yeah.
The cold goes away, and the spring brings flowers and everything else. Where I live, you see a big difference because we have about 4 to 5 months of cold winter. Praveen, where did you come from? Were you born in the USA, or you came from somewhere else?
No, I was born in India, so I did my bachelor's in technology. It's the same as that I graduate here in chemical engineering. Then I came to United States of America to pursue my master's in chemical engineering, and then went from doing a job as a research scientist, and during the Y2K boom, shifted from that to the software and technology and information technology, and went to Montreal to work, and then came back to the United States of America during the dot-com boom, and have been in California since 2000.
Wow. So here I am telling you about the snow and the winter, and you being in Montreal, that's even colder than where I am.
Yeah, I've lived it through, but it's so strange. Your body gets used to the weather, and then once once you've adapted, it feels normal. But then when you change, so right now, even if it is below 50 degrees, I feel cold. When I was in Montreal, anything above 35 was considered warm. So,
isn't it weird? I'm experiencing the same issue. Like for the winter, I came down south. I'm from Guatemala, so I come in the winters here. And I'm complaining about how hot it is all the time. And remembering that it's snowing back in Canada,
Yeah.
Praveen, we have a very similar story. I went up to Canada for pursuing my second degree on computer science, and then I never left. Now, the difference between you and I, though, is that I went into software right away. Like I was doing a management information systems, and then I went into software, full into software, and I never done anything else since then. What made you change careers? Because computer engineering is quite different from writing software, right?
Well, yes and no, and that's what I've realized, as I look back at my experience. So even within engineering, there was a bit of programming that we used to do, because you had to understand the data that the instruments were giving you. I was working with polymers, which are a specific kind of plastic. So when you study them, there's a lot of data, and you have to analyze the data. I didn't know back then that there were similarities. So that's one. And then I think the biggest thing going through an engineering discipline is your analytical skills translate to solving problems, and so you're always looking at that landscape of what are we going after, what's the problem, what could be the solutions, what is the data. And so those aspects between engineering and computer science and software are similar. So that's what helped me, and I was looking for a challenge. I still am looking for challenges. That's what keeps me gratified at my job. So that's what made me transition, because at the time I was living in Montreal. Y2K was the biggest issue of that year or 2 years, and there were a lot of initiatives going on, and I was just curious, and so applied my programming and tinkered with some software. I love the idea that you can quickly see what you're putting your efforts into, whereas in the research, you take years and years to publish papers, and you have to understand what others are doing, and it's a long life cycle. So whereas in software, it's almost like you tinker something and something is coming back. So that was exciting. So that's what led to my first transition. And then once I got in, and there were interesting jobs that kept me going in this career.
It's interesting that you said about the having a quick payback, because little did I know that I had ADHD all my life. I just figured out 2 years ago. And when I went into software, even though it's a tedious job, especially back in the 80s and 90s, that you really had to code everything, it was such a puzzle that kept me interested. It was the only thing that I could actually deploy my entire brain cycles to. And then I just did a quick compile and it will see the results, right? I couldn't do anything else. That's why I fell in love with computer science, and specifically with programming, because the feedback was immediate. So it was giving me a dopamine hit all the time. Interesting,
Yep,
eh?
yep.
Praveen, how did you jump into leadership? One of the things that I noticed is that once you're a very good developer or very good engineer, it's very hard to break off into leadership. And if you are very good at what you are, people put you in leadership positions and you have no idea what you're doing. And then a lot of the times you actually ruin people's careers by doing that.
Yeah.
How was your transition?
So, I would be lying if I didn't say that I knew exactly what I was getting into. Like everybody, as you become a senior individual contributor, you're looking for career growth. And there were two paths at the time. So there was the architecture path, where you could become even more of a specialist and pursue that career as individual contributor, and the other one was management. I did not think of management as a different career path, but once I got into it, I did realize that, like you said, leading people is very different from leading yourself. And as I got into the management career, then obviously made mistakes, had good leaders, good mentors, and learned from them. So as it sunk in, then I also saw it as a different kind of challenge, and that's what kept me interested. Otherwise, the headaches that come with management are not as gratifying to solve as programming and others. But at the same time, the nuances, everybody is different, every organization is different, and I will say that it is more art than science, the management, because you can never get it right, meaning you can never be 100%, but you can keep applying what you learned and get better at it.
The only way to be 100% in leadership, Praveen, is that you were managing robots. That's why it's hard. There is a science component and an art component, but I know for sure it's more art than science, because every human being is different.
Yeah.
Different feelings, different goals, different backgrounds, different cultures, right? Yeah. What was your first leadership experience? How many people were you leading? How did you break through into that?
So before coming to Wells Fargo, I was in a professional services organization for a software company. We were implementing the software at different customers. And interestingly, my first big, large project was implementing their software at Wells Fargo Bank. And what was supposed to be a 2-month engagement turned out to be a 5-year engagement because of the complexity of the project, and also somehow they liked me. And I was always asked by my consulting managers that, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because the customer just wants you. But in that process, as you're implementing software, you had to manage both the customer expectations, but I also had to partner with the partners within the organization. So my first experience with management was indirect, meaning I didn't have a title, but I understood that you have to have all these aspects and interact with partners, bring back data, collect data, create relationships, and that was the trickiest one. And so when I was looking for career growth, I thought the natural progression would be that, since I am, managing partner relationships, leading an implementation, and learning from that, I applied for a manager position at Wells Fargo, and that was my first official management position. Although in a consulting organization, it was more of a unofficial role, because you were a senior individual contributor and you had expectations that came with it, and that's what made me learn the nuances. And then once I came to Wells Fargo, that's when I was formally a manager, and I managed a group of around 30 to 40 engineers. And at the time, the QA organization was outside, so they were dotted line to me.
That's another very similar story to mine. It's crazy. When I became my first job as an IT manager, it was because they recognized that I was a bridge between the development team and the business. And that's what you were doing, right? You could understand what the business wanted and you could translate it to the technical people. And that's how I got in. And I didn't know how hard it was going to be. I was so excited. Oh, IT manager. It was more the reputation that got me, because I was a narcissist back then, I'm not anymore, thank God, but back then, so, oh, look, I'm a manager, without knowing what I got myself into.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I learned in the first couple of years, that, as exciting as it was, because, you were always proud that, oh my God, I have this management position. You have a budget and you have all these perks, but then, you look at the headaches of, okay, you have to lead your people, you have to be the last stop, meaning if you are panicking, then there is no other person that they will go to. So all those lessons were learned over the period of next few career progressions.
I remember my boss, he knew that I loved programming, right? And he was my mentor too. So I remember the first 3 months of the job as a manager. It was crazy because he said, I need you for your team to write a portion for CRM. This is 2001, right? 2000. I needed to create a CRM package for the company that I was working for, like 3,000 people organization, because it was the beginning of the CRM world, and they needed something internal. But when I looked at the capacity of all my people, everybody was busy. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write it myself. And it took me 3 months to write, and I was so proud. So then I go show my boss, look what I did. And he's like, oh, this is great. Who made it? I was like, I wrote it. And he's like, David. And he says, I knew you were going to fail at this, and I'm gonna have to give you a correction, because you're not a developer anymore, you're a manager.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have resources, you have to figure out a way to bring more resources, or figure it out how to motivate your people to get it done. Because if you start doing their job, then I need 10 of you, and I Absolutely. Just want one of you, right?
No, I have a similar experience. In fact, I did not get that tough test from my boss, but my automatic reaction to solving problems when I was a manager initially was, hey, I know what to do, and I'll tell them what to do. And then when they didn't do exactly like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps of what I thought was correct, I would get mad. And then, then I had to learn that, first of all, you're not going to be, micromanaging your team all the time, and it's not possible to scale. But also, your interpretation of what is right may not be the right answer for everybody, and everybody is different. Some may go, beyond the 5 steps you thought were correct. Some may go 3 steps and still do the job. Some may say that this is not how you do the job. So you always have to learn and be able to then get the best out of the team you have, and that's what learned that otherwise you can't scale, but also your organization won't benefit from you being a manager.
Exactly. And so that was a great lesson. And then I realized how hard my job was, because my job was to motivate people. And like you said, it took me a long time to figure out that they were going to do it their own way, not the way that I told them to do. So that was the hardest for me to break away from, like, that my way was the best way. No. I was just there to inspire people and to ask them to bring possible solutions. And then when their solutions failed, guide them to the right path. Right. But you don't go to school to learn these things. I'm like, people should have like a career path to teach you how to be a good leader, right?
Absolutely. I have not done MBA. A lot of my friends have done MBA, but even that curriculum does not teach you this.
No, one of my friends told me, I should have, instead of using the $100,000 for my MBA, I would have done a startup company and I would have learned more on that failure than going to school for 100K, I mean, if you don't want to go into the financial sector, if you want to go to Wall Street, for sure, do an MBA. But if you really want to go into leadership, there's better ways. Right?
Yeah.
What has been the hardest situation at work, and how were you able to overcome it?
Hardest situation. A couple of scenarios come to mind. I think the hardest situation was both a difficult team member I had and a difficult boss I had. So both of the situations were very tough to handle because you try everything you think is possible, and if you still don't get the result, then you get frustrated. And when you're frustrated, you're not thinking straight. You're not thinking about all possibilities. You automatically make assumptions. So I think I'll tell you. I had a boss who did not agree with me, but that was okay. You don't need to agree with, but also did not provide me options to apply my experience and skills, and would take feedback from the business and be writing my performance saying, hey, it's not performing up to par. So I had to reach out to the mentors and other relationships to kind of make sense. And then had to also adapt my personality from. I was a developer, and like you said, grew up doing all the tasks that I am now managing for my portfolio. So I had to get away from assuming that the other person knows as much technology in detail as I do. That's one lesson. The other lesson is understand where their motivations were and what they wanted to get accomplished. So that kind of helped, but that was a very difficult situation because my frustration and my demoralization showed up when I was in front of my team members. And so it's a ripple down effect. So you kind of take that morale, and the morale is, it passes down to your team, and before you realize, it's a very dangerous spiral. So that definitely was a very difficult time. And then even when I was managing this difficult team member, the same story. So you do understand that it's just work, but then the team member was extremely frustrated. They wanted to escalate to my manager, which was fine. I went to talk to my manager, but they just did not see the viewpoint of, hey, you're not contributing to the team. You may think that you're individually doing very well, but you're not contributing to the team. And in order for you to contribute, we both have to come together and understand what is it that you really want to do. And it was very hard to explain. So finally, the team member moved to another group, but I felt like For me, even if a team member does not like me, they give me a bad rating, I felt for the first time that I had no options. Usually I always follow this principle of, okay, you make your decision based on your experience and the data and the things that are presented for you, but then you always collect data back saying, hey, is it working? And just not ask the team member, ask the whole team, the partners. And for the first time, even after doing it many cycles, I felt like I ran out of options, and that was a very difficult situation.
And this is when fate comes in. I have had many situations where I open my toolbox and there is nothing that can help me, right? I remember one of my worst time in my career, I was just beginning to lead a team of 12 developers. And but I was anxious. I wanted to go faster. It was a multi-billion-dollar organization with tens of thousands of employees. And the task that they gave me was the date-sensitive task, and I love those challenges, right? But at this time, the IT policies were very strict. Do you remember the code red virus?
Yes.
So it was a bug that attached to IIS, which is the internet service for
web server.
Internet server for Microsoft. I'm talking a long time ago. But I needed to go faster, and they had a lot of websites blocked. So I figured out a way to go into a website to try to get a piece of code for my team that my team member he was stuck. And instead of going maybe home or something, try to use some other way, I used the computer and I got the code and everything started working. But then the next day, listen to this, not my manager, not the director, the reporter to the global CIO, the guy that reports to the global CIO came to my office with two cops, with two private police people that were in the building, and they told me, you need to get your bags and clear your desk, and you're coming out with us. And they didn't tell me why. So I'm like, what did I do? I'm like, Lord, what do I do? So I went home and I started thinking, and they said they were going to call me, in a few days. So I was home and went to my wife. I had 3 kids. I'm like, I don't know why they kicked me out like this. And it was weird. And I started thinking back. And the only thing that I could remember is that I went to a website that I wasn't allowed to go.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how bad could it be, right? So we started praying. So I'm a Christian and my wife is Christian. So we were like, Lord, please help us, deliver us from this. If I lose my job, maybe gonna lose my house because I was paying a mortgage. Back then, my wife wasn't working because my kids were little and she was a full-time mom. And sure enough, 2 days later, they called me up. And then I went right to the CIO office. And they sat me, the cops were behind his desk. And he told me, I want you to tell me exactly what you did on Monday. And I'm like, sure. And I, And then he said, okay. And did you know that website was not allowed? And I'm like, I told him the truth. It was so hard for me to get into that site. So I had to do this and that to overcome the firewall. And I finally got it in. And he says, and then I told him all excited, but the software worked, right? The module that I was working on worked. And then he says, do you know that you just stopped 1,000 developers because what you did is you brought a Trojan horse that got attached to your IIS server, and that replicated throughout the entire organization, and you cost us millions of dollars.
Wow.
And we still recovering from it. And he said, did you read this? When you were hired, did you read the manual, the IT security manual that we gave you that you actually signed? And I'm like, no. Why did you read it? Well, it was a 100-page document. Okay, so you need to go back home and you need to read it. And he said, because you're honest and you didn't try to hide what you did, I'm not gonna let you go. But I want you to go back home, read the entire document, and come back and your job will be restored. But know that you cost us millions of dollars because 1,000 people couldn't work because of you.
Yeah.
But my faith got me through because I didn't lose my job. But I learned a huge lesson, right?
Thank
Number
goodness.
one, tell the truth, right? No matter what, don't try to hide anything. If you made a mistake, even if you did it on purpose, you have to come forward and say, I'm sorry. Because I actually apologized after that, right? And my team, because I had people reporting to me, my team were like, hey, man, I can't believe you're still here. I thought they were going to let you go and stuff like that. I became the popular, leader in the company for
This
like
is the
3
guy who
months.
did that.
Oh, I was working at the cafeterias like, that's the guy that got the COVID virus in the company. I felt like a fool for a while.
No, but you're right. I mean, fate does feel like intervene. But you're right, and you're exactly right. It's telling the truth and making those relationships. You go through situations where your character is tested, and that even though you don't realize at the time, what you've done, gives you that second chance or the right path. So absolutely, I don't don't believe in praying, but I do believe in the. I'm a Hindu, growing up in India. I don't practice religion, but I do believe that if you do good things, you will get good things, even if you may not feel that day, but in the long run.
Well, in my book, in the Bible, there is a law that says you will always reap what you sow. And that's exactly what you just said, right? And if you want to see, it's a universal law. And if you go to a field and you plant tomatoes, there's no way you're going to get corn, right?
Yep.
If you plant weeds, you're going to get weeds.
Yeah.
Right? It's very simple to understand, and some people don't get it. Right? So, Praveen, when did you make it to become a leader of leaders? Because that's another step, right? Like, when you start going with, you said 50 people, you still didn't have QA, but they were reported directly to you. When was that time when you were responsible for bringing leaders that manage other people?
Yeah. So my first job, after I joined Wells Fargo Bank, we acquired. This was 2008, and we acquired Wachovia Bank, and so the merger of the two banks was a big initiative, and it lasted 2 or 3 years, because we had to select the right system, we had to migrate all the users to the go-forward systems, and we had to make the right architectural choices, and then also work with different business partners. So in the process, I was given additional responsibilities. As I was getting additional responsibilities, my boss then told me that, hey, so far you managed your team directly, and now you need to create or hire. You need to promote or hire leaders that work for you. And I did not realize that I would be not adapting to the new role in the same way, because I was always used to, first the transition was from IC to manager, and where you have to delegate and observe and trust that the team will come with different skills, and you have to then collectively understand the risks and react to it. Now you have to then translate that experience to another manager that will manage their team members. And there, the tricky thing was, it's about not just delegation, but the amount of trust that you need to have was even more, meaning you did not know what was going on. So there's no way for you to know, because when you were managing your team directly, you're sitting with them every day, you're going through the project scrum meetings. I mean, at the time there's no scrum, but the project manager used to organize meetings every day. You talk to business, you know exactly what's going on, and you're making decisions. But now you have to trust this manager to do the same. And also, same thing, each manager will have a different style, and you have to realize that some may come with lot of technical skills. Some may come with a lot of business skills, meaning understands the business very well. But you have to direct them again to that organization's need. And so that it did not come automatically, but again, the mentors and learning through the lessons learned helped me. So it was after those 3 years, once we put in the successful integration, that I was given, and then I had to. So that was one step, and then the other step was, you're not even you didn't even not sorry you did not have the luxury of hiring the manager or promoting the manager. You would get a group. So that's the other big lesson for me. The CIO would come and say that, hey Praveen, you're doing great. I know you're very you're eager to take on more challenges. I don't have anything organic, but there is this team. It's not working, and it's almost like you're voluntold that yes, you're going to go manage them, and that's a very even more difficult situation, because one, the team knows that they are in trouble, and somebody from outside is coming to manage them, and then they're always defending, saying, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why the management transferred our team to you. We were supposed to be in that organization. So that was another big lesson for me, to keep my own emotions out of my thought process, to not pass judgment, but also balance what they're saying with what we want to do moving forward. So what helped me is that I never believed in a hierarchy, meaning I never said, hey, only my managers have to talk to me. I always thought that it's always a team or a team of teams, and we're all in together. So a lot of times when I get new team, or when I have a new project, a big project, I would spend time with the developers, with the leads, with the managers, huddle, and then even with the business, and understand what is going on before reacting to it or making a decision. And so that gave me more data points, but also gave the team the comfort that, hey, this guy is not just using his senior title and coming in and passing decisions. He's actually explaining that this is why we are doing what we're doing. We may be wrong, we may go wrong, but again, we present the data back. He will then take it, or he will go to the managers that we have and make a decision. So I think that's very those are the lessons I learned as I grew up in the organization, because you don't get you don't choose your team a lot of times, especially in a bigger organization.
That's probably one of the hardest things as a senior leader. For me, that part was so hard that I took a leadership course for technology people. I actually found that it exists. So when it was a 1-year postgraduate degree, my commencement speech was in Boston. Ray Kurzweil, I don't know if you know him, but he was the one that did the keynote speech. But regardless of all that, what I learned there is that they made me read 32 books in 1 year. And all of them were leadership. And so they got me from managing myself to managing teams, to tribes, all the way to thousands of people. But one of the books that I remember that helped me a lot when I got assigned to a large team was The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I don't know if you have read that book. But that book basically describes the 5 things that a team does. That the number one thing is they defend themselves. That's the first problem that you see, right? So usually what I did is I would actually go and get their leaders to read the book. Their leaders.
Oh.
And then say, okay, you got the book, you read it, okay, what you gonna do with it? And then I got them to make a plan. And then after all that, there were still discrepancies, and there were still people, and it came down to, let's say it was like a 500 people team. It was always down to 2 or 3 people that were making all the trouble. So if these people didn't change their attitude, we will let them go. And once that happened, everything started to flourish. Crazy, right?
That's amazing. And that's also, so it's amazing that when everything works, it almost, it multiplies, meaning you don't need to intervene. Automatically, the team productivity goes up, morale goes up.
Yeah.
But when, like you said, when there is a problem in one or two, or there's a problem, it's all the way down. Like it's the opposite. So even if you try to intervene and it's not working, the morale is down, the team is not productive, and you don't know what's going on. So no, absolutely. And I think, like you said, I think having that rigor of not just going and saying, hey, here is the vision, here is the strategy, here is what we want, here is the presentation, now go. No, that doesn't, that's just the beginning, like you said. So then you sit, go through the plan, and then the plan, it's not just execution, it's also taking account of what is the talent you have, what is the team doing, what are the skill sets, whether it is even your FDEs or contractors. You need to understand, and then parallelly, as you're trying to implement, make sure that you have a plan to shore up. Either you have to uplift the skills or cross train, or maybe you change the team. Or that's other thing that worked for me. Just like I volunteered to take on additional responsibilities, I believe that if the team is ready to take on whatever challenge that comes, then it becomes a lot more easier for you to operate, even if it is a larger team. And that's one of the things that I believe in, that even if you don't need to change companies. You can just, if you're in a large organization, if you're just flexible, you automatically get opportunities. And when even if you don't apply for a job, if you, once you're flexible, people realize that they can take advantage of that, and it automatically leads to opportunities.
For sure. And it comes down to attitude and managing people's morale. Another
Yeah,
thing that always worked is that if the team was ruined, if they were like so low, I will give them a very, very small wins, like tiny wins. Like I will get them, okay, get me this done. And I knew it was something so stupid, but once they got it, we will celebrate
no,
and
that
celebrate and
that
celebrate. And then eventually the attitude started to change. Like get them to believe in themselves again, especially after
absolutely.
a big failure, right?
Yep. No, no, that's the key. You did it with a small assignment, but even if indirectly you're doing something. So before COVID, we used to all go in the office. So even if it is doing something like a volunteering event, or oh, we're going to spare 15 minutes in every staff meeting to recognize, or we are doing a common donation and we're going to raise money. So, but you're bringing the team together, because it's just work, and work, everybody's doing different things, and you're coming and talking about problems. But when you said little things, those do matter. In fact, like you said, as a new manager or a leading manager, you have to keep doing that, because otherwise, like you said, the morale, if it's bad, then it's going to be even more bad if you don't get the team together. And getting the team together doesn't necessarily mean that you're always executing on the next software upgrade or the next software. It's also about these things, because that creates that sense that yes, I do belong in the team. Whether I agree with what I'm doing or not, I'm still part of the team. They're doing great things. I like the team. We are all in it together.
For sure. After that course, what I realized is that I knew nothing about culture, and that's what you're talking about, building a
Yeah.
good culture. So for the next, 3-4 years, I became an expert. I mean, to my level, an expert on culture. I read many, many books about culture and how to actually motivate people the right way, how to get them to do benevolent work without you having to be on top of them, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually what makes companies great, the culture inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's difficult, but that's what, yeah, exactly, that you're right.
Praveen, thank you so much for your time. It's been 40 minutes past the hour, and I don't want to
It was a pleasure.
to
Thank you so much.
abuse your time. I know you're a top executive and you have a lot of work to do. One last question before we leave.
Sure.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on it?
From any topic.
Any topic. Inspirational.
It may sound cheesy, but I think everybody has to remember that do what you want others to do what you want others to do to you. Meaning, you act in a way, think in a way that you always can be right. You always don't think that you're the only one that's right. It's about having the perspective constantly and staying humble.
That's beautiful. That's actually another spiritual law. If you do unto others what you want them to do unto you, we will have a much better world.
Yeah.
But is that pride that says my way or the highway that gets us into what we have, a horrible society. Praveen, thank you so much. God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of the week. And I hope to see you soon later.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.